Are you worried that you and your partner may not last? Well, any one of these next 4 symptoms is a sure sign that you two are headed for romantic ruin. If you didn't see my first video talking about the signs and symptoms that can predict divorce with over 90% accuracy, clearly you haven't hit the subscribe button down below. So go ahead and do that. Hit the like button because you don't want to miss out on these mental health tips and helps that will get you through those difficult times in your life. But today we are talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. There are 4 symptoms that are very clearly signs that your romantic relationship, your relationship is headed for ruin. It will not last. It's not going to stand the test of time because when these things start to creep in, they signal the end. And that is not something that any of us want. And if they are in your relationship, better to be aware of them and recognize them now and make some changes or get out of a toxic relationship so that way you can find the happiness that you're truly, really looking for. So let's talk about them today. There are 4 signs and 4 antidotes. We call them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and the 4 antidotes that help recognize and point out toxicity in your relationship, and especially in communication. That is a total game changer when it comes to how you communicate with your partner and how you work through conflict, because let's face it, those are the times that things start to get the most sketchy. We become worried, like, is this going to be a consistent problem in our relationship? Is this going to be something that we can never fully overcome? And from the research, we know that there's 2 kinds of problems in a relationship. There are solvable and there are unsolvable problems. For example, I don't mean to be crass, but there is a different lived experience if you have a vagina and if you have a penis. Those are unsolvable problems. Somebody who has never experienced what it's like to have those sexual reproductive organs, they'll never understand what it's like. Same way, the other way around. That is an unsolvable problem, and we can only face that problem with love, care, and empathy, mutual respect and trust for one another, and learn from one another, because I'll never fully understand that. That's an unsolvable problem. Now, there's solvable problems. There are some problems in your relationship that will be fixed, that you will figure out. You may be arguing about where to go to dinner tonight, but you're going to have dinner and you're going to figure it out. Now, it may not be a satisfying solution, but it will be a problem that will be solved. Now, what's interesting about it is that even if there are a lot of unsolved problems in the relationship, that doesn't actually predict divorce. That doesn't predict whether the couple will break up. These 4 signs will predict whether the couple breaks up or not. It's okay to have some systemic and some differences because we're all different human beings. What's most important is how you communicate, how you approach, and how you solve the conflict inside your relationships. And these are the 4 things you want to look out for. I'm going to talk about them and give some examples. Let's go right over here. Transition in. Beautiful. 4 horsemen. Number 1 is criticism. If you are verbally attacking your partner, that is not a great sign. Verbal attacks and criticism are very different from constructive feedback and from expressing statements of concern. Now, that is the huge difference. Criticism looks like you're an idiot. Criticism looks like you never pay attention to me. You. Oftentimes, if you recognize you're starting most of your sentences with a you, that's going to be an issue because it indicates that you are criticizing the other person rather than actively and accurately communicating your concerns, right? So you see this all the time in couples. You never listen to me. You never understand. You never pick up your socks, things like that. And so when you begin to communicate that, it instantly builds defensiveness. It instantly builds a resistance inside of that person rather than productive and healthy communication. The antidote, as you can see in this chart, is a gentle startup, talking about feelings using I statements. And I know you may be rolling your eyes because you may have gone to couples counseling and heard a therapist talk about this already. Let's practice using our I statements. It can be annoying when a therapist uses this and they use it without helping a person understand why I statements are so important. But they really truly are, because when we start with an I statement, we can still be critical and we can still voice a problem and a concern inside the relationship, but we're doing it from our own perspective. Now, here's why, right? Let me tell you why this is going to help you win arguments with your partner. When you say, "You never listen to me," what's your partner going to do? What response are you eliciting from them? Well, they're going to say, "Yes, I do. I listened to you last week when you said that you wanted to get ice cream after church, and so we went and got ice cream after church. Or I listened to you that time when you said that you wanted to go out to that place and get tea, or that bar that you like and not the one that I like. I listened to you and we went to that bar. And so you're instantly inviting them to be critical and to tell you why you're wrong. You don't want your partner to tell you that you're wrong. Nobody wants that. What you want is for them to listen to you, right? Ladies, gentlemen, am I crazy here? You want them to listen. So if you say, I feel like, or I have noticed, or I am understanding, or I have become aware, or I was talking with my therapist, whatever it is, when you start with I, you have a solid foundation. This is classic arguments. Lawyers know this stuff, which is funny because lawyers tend to be pretty bad at communication and relationships, but that's neither here nor there. At me in the comments below if you're a lawyer. When you start with an I, you can't argue with that. If I say, when there is some socks on the floor, when there's a backpack left out and about instead of where it belongs, I feel like you don't care about me. Well, how is a person supposed to say, well, no, you don't feel that way. It's my feelings. You can't argue with something I feel. In fact, there's no way for that person to provide evidence that I don't feel or I don't experience the thing that I feel or experience. See, you're starting from, well, you really can't lose in that situation. I feel like we don't spend enough time together. I feel like you don't care about how I keep the house nice, clean, neat, and tidy. And then you come and dirty it up as soon as you get home without realizing how much time it took to clean. I feel like we don't have enough sex. These are the things that when you start with I statements, you're starting from a place of confidence. You're starting from a place where you, instead of inviting an argument, you are moving toward a solution. Right? So that's number one. And you can tell when you watch couples fight, and this is fascinating, do it with your friends. When you watch couples fight and they instantly criticize, you didn't do that thing I asked. You didn't do this. You do this. You problem this. You problem that. It's not going to work out. It's going to be a severe issue. Now, number two is contempt. Now, remember in the first video that you didn't subscribe to, and so you didn't see it, you will be forgiven. It's fine. I understand. I talked about how mutual respect is number one out of the two pillars of a relationship. And so here we see the second horseman of the apocalypse is contempt. If you start to build contempt inside of your relationship, it is sure to be over. If when you think about your partner, you think about first the things that you appreciate about them, and let's be honest, even if somebody is an asshole, there are still things that you appreciate about them. You know, it can be simple, it can be silly, right? But we got to start from a place of appreciation. And I'm jumping to the antidote already. But when you notice a couple talking and they start with contempt, he's always like this, you know, or he's insufferable. I can't deal with him, right? And the subversion of this, the little subheading is contempt, attacking sense of self with an intent to insult or abuse, right? When we start to cut our partner down out of contempt, the relationship's over. Who wants to be with somebody that they don't appreciate? Who wants to be with somebody that they think is, spineless, dickless, no good, son of a bitch? It's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? When we start with appreciation, and this is the antidote, I'm getting to it real fast here. By building a culture of appreciation, we are able to find that love and rekindle that spark inside of ourselves. And so contempt, not only is it not just about being nicer to your partner, but it's about you. If you want that spark in your relationship, you're not going to have it by cutting them down. If you find the things that you appreciate about them, you'll find that spark. And think about it. When you first had that crush on them, when you first were going on dates with them and found them romantic, you didn't know all the problems that they have. You just thought about, their hair is so nice. Their body is so great. The way that they speak is so elegant, right? The things that they can do, their talents are so attractive. And so you think about the things that you appreciate first, and that's what builds sparks. People all the time tell me, they come into my office and they say, the spark is gone from our relationship, and I don't know how to get back. What it means is they have found contempt with their partner instead of building appreciation. Spark is not something magical. It's not metaphysics. It's not spiritual. Sparks can be built, and they're scientific. They are psychological. And people all the time seem to think that sparks in chemistry are all about something that, well, you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. No, this is science. You can build a spark. You can build a spark with anybody, and it comes from appreciation. Subheading here, remind yourself of your partner's positive qualities and find gratitude for positive actions. Number three, horseman of the apocalypse that ends your relationship, defensiveness. Now, to me, defensiveness and criticism are really mirrors of each other. When we have defensiveness inside of our relationship, instead of addressing and, working through the problem together, we're just trying to protect ourselves. And that can often be a result from criticism. If you feel like the person is criticizing you, often you respond in defensiveness. And so what's cool is, even though there is an antidote of criticism with gentle startup, there's also, you can diffuse criticism by, instead of taking it defensively, you take responsibility for what's going on. And we're getting right to the antidote here very quickly. Defensiveness, defined here, subheading, is victimizing yourself to ward off a perceived attack and reverse the blame. Think about that for a minute. I feel like you don't appreciate me, or I feel like we don't. Let's start with that one. I feel like you don't appreciate me. Well, how could you think I don't appreciate you, right? I do all these things for you. Defensive. Now, that may be true. I'm not saying that's not true, but remember your goal. Your goal is to solve this problem and to build love in your relationship. Defensiveness is not going to accomplish that goal. Don't be defensive. Of course you do nice things for them. Of course they're missing all the 101 ways that you tried to love them this week, and they're focusing on this one stupid thing that doesn't make any sense. Got it, right? But remember your goal, building love and working through this. So instead of doing that, say, well, that's very interesting. That's really important to me that you don't feel loved and appreciated. Can you tell me more? Right? And so, antidote, take responsibility. Subheading, accept your partner's perspective and offer an apology for any wrongdoing. If you didn't do any wrongdoing, I understand. But even if the wrongdoing is, I didn't communicate that well, or I didn't communicate that in a way that you would understand, that's great. Apologize there. Find something that you can take responsibility for and work through. Now, I feel like we don't have enough sex in our relationship. And you're over there thinking, well, God, you don't shower, you don't care for yourself, you're slovenly, and you don't create any romantic atmosphere. How am I supposed to have a sexual relationship with you, right? Yes. I understand. But if your goal is to build love and a spark in your relationship, say, that's really important to me. I want you to feel sexually satisfied in our relationship. Can you tell me more? Help me understand. What do you mean? And then by doing that and not starting with defensiveness, they'll say, well, I feel like you don't initiate things. And you're like, okay, that's interesting. And then you can have a conversation, and naturally in that conversation will come up, well, sometimes I do find it hard to initiate because you isolate yourself by playing video games all the time. I was like, are you telling me that it's okay for me to interrupt your video games and initiate physical interaction? You're getting to the problem that you were going to address anyways, but you're doing it in a way that's less defensive and actually opens up the opportunity to solve these issues. You see, it's beautiful. Once you understand the way that psychology works and the way the relationship works, it's actually kind of easy and you can kind of get it. So take responsibility. Now, number 4, last one. Video is already long enough, but we're going to get to it. Number 4, can't leave you hanging. Horseman of the apocalypse is stonewalling. Stonewalling is withdrawing to avoid conflict and convey disapproval, distance, and separation. This one is probably the nail in the coffin. When stonewalling has started, ooh, baby girl, it is hard to pull that back. It is hard to pry open the coffin of that dead relationship and start to do CPR on the chest of the heart that has lost its spark inside. That was a great metaphor. Someone write that down. Goddamn. But here's the truth, right? Stonewalling, if you cut off and you go silent, people talk all the time, and they think they're so smart about it too. They're like, oh, I'm giving my partner the silent treatment. You idiot. It's over. If you are systematically and continuously giving your partner the silent treatment, you do not have a relationship. It's already done, baby girl. Like, wrap it up, ship it off, FedEx it to overnight, because it's through. Instead, the antidote, psychological self-soothing, right? And I understand, and I'm going to explain psychological self-soothing here in a minute, but I understand, like, you may feel so frustrated with your partner that the only way to get them to self-reflect is by stonewalling them and being silent and cutting off and avoiding them. But that is not the habit that you want to build inside of your relationship. You want them to come to you and for you to help them start self-reflect, because that way you're building an intimacy that is going to last a lifetime. And so when we talk about psychological self-soothing, the antidote for stonewalling, Take a break and separate that time doing something soothing and distracting. When we start to stonewall, it's because we become scared. It's because we feel like we need to protect ourselves. And so we push away and we avoid because the situation feels hopeless. And sometimes you will need to pull away and recoup, re-energize, do some self-care, do some breathing, go take a yoga class, go walk around a lake, because that's important, right? We cannot have a healthy resolution to the conflict if our amygdala is in fight or flight response. You see what I'm saying? Amygdala being the part of your brain that's responsible for those things. And so if you're in that heightened state, instead of stonewalling and pulling away, say, wow, have a moment, right? You can even do some taking responsibility, the other antidote, right? You're like, wow, I'm really mad at you right now. See, again, we started with an I statement. We took responsibility. And so he said, I am really upset with you right now. And I don't want to be upset with you because I want to build appreciation into our relationship. I don't want to be contemptuous of you. I don't want to build resentment with you. I think I need to go cool down. Can we come back to this? And this is key. Can we come back to this in an hour, in 2 hours, at the end of the day, whatever it is, by instead of stonewalling, asking for what you need and soothing yourself psychologically and saying, hey, I just need a break. Can we come back to this at X time? Now, you can't say in a week. That's too long. But if you need a little bit, and we know from the amygdala, it only needs a few hours to calm down as long as it's not being re-triggered. By asking for what you need, soothing yourself, going on a bike ride, getting some fresh air, and coming back, you're able to work through those things from a place of calm, cool, collected prefrontal cortex conversation rather than heightened fight or flight amygdala conversation, right? When that stuff is going, conversation is not. And so that's really where we want to be. So soothe yourself and ask for that. Advocate yourself. Your partner's not going to know if you're triggered. They may, but it's not their responsibility to know that they're triggered. If you are triggered, you have to advocate for yourself and say, hey, I need a break, rather than silent treatment or stonewalling the relationship. And so, listen, I hope that's been helpful. These are the 4 things you want to be aware of and careful of inside of your relationship. If you've got other questions or follow-up things that I can make a video for you specifically about, put it in the comments. I'm sure other people have that question. I would love to be there for you. Until then, I hope this helps. Remember, your mind's not against you. It's just misunderstood. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.